Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
Excited to be back after what I think was a well-deserved bye week. An opportunity again for us to, take the load off a bit, allow our guys to go home if it was an opportunity that presented itself for them on Thanksgiving, and a chance to, jumpstart on, the two potential opponents, which became clearly Tennessee Martin as we went out and practiced on Saturday. So really looking forward to this opportunity. Come this Saturday to be back in Bobcat Stadium and, continue that mindset of one at a time. Lots made of being the top seed, but nothing's guaranteed except this one game in front of us. And, was really impressed with what Tennessee Martin was able to do on Saturday, going on the road to New Hampshire and, beating a seeded team at their place and really handling them in all forms. Offensively, really dominant performance for them, and they're capable through the air, on the ground. Led by their quarterback, big, tall quarterback who, I think is showing us a couple different things. He's certainly capable of making all the throws, but then his ability to extend plays, make runs, be a factor in the running game, as he was on Saturday, is definitely there as well. In Smith, they have a running back that's over 1,000 yards and, really talented. And he's their main guy for sure. And, a guy, again, that's capable of making all the different types of runs. So the run game is, suited for him. And then on the other end of a lot of those passes, I think it's Rucker and Tanksley, I think is right, number 1 and number 4. They're combined right now for 100 catches and, 700 yards a piece for both of them. So, two weapons there in particular. They like to use their tight ends. I know one of them went down on Saturday, but offensively, a pretty balanced outfit that can do it a lot of different ways. And again, that starts with their quarterback, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention their offensive line, I think, is particularly strong as well. Defensively, I know the number that jumps out immediately is they're giving up less than 85 yards on the ground per game, and anytime you do that over the course of a 13-game season, that is going to jump out at you. That's a mark of consistency. That's a mark of eliminating that facet of another team's offense week in, week out. And then I think they take the ball away well. I think 19 interceptions jumps out at you. They get after the quarterback. They're really big. They play a bunch of guys in their 3-man front. And I would think those guys, the 6 of them or whatever they play, 5 or 6 of them average 300 pounds. So that's a big front, plus the guys going in are big. Their linebackers are very active. I think their top 3 tacklers and their 2 starting inside linebackers. So been very impressed with their defense. I think their 3-man front is similar to some of the fronts we've seen, probably most similar to Davis, going back a couple weeks into our schedule. For us, I think the saving grace is we've had a chance to go against some odd fronts through the course of the season. They're all a little bit different. The nature of theirs being a size-oriented front will certainly be a challenge for us to contend with again. Or our rushing numbers and their yards given up is certainly going to be a critical piece to how this game is decided. And certainly on the turnover side, we've done a pretty good job of protecting the football over the course of the season. They've obviously taken it away, and you get in playoff time, the turnover margin is critical as well. So excited about this opportunity that's in front of us, and anxious to get back, in Bobcat Stadium and really have a playoff crowd. One thing that stood out to me in the 3 previous years, we've had an opportunity to host playoff games. The playoff crowd brings us something a little bit different, and we certainly need that come Saturday. So with that, I'll open it up.
Anything else besides that 3-man front that they do especially well to stop the run?
Well, I think, beyond the size component and the inability to move them, I think they do a good job of picking and choosing their times to move, and it's calculated on their end. And so I think some of the teams that we've played, that's been their MO to move quite a bit. Some have just from time to time hunker down, but movement combined with size is challenging. And then I think they're willing to take their chances with packing it up in there too at times. So anytime you want to bring your safeties down and they become part of the numbers game, you're going to have an advantage there defensively.
And the 21 game, how much have you been thinking about that one? And at times for the start, of course, the wind. Is anything else that kind of you're taking from that into this one?
Well, same head coach. So there's similarities certainly. They've had staff changes and personnel changes for sure. But I think one thing you understand quickly is that, their head coach, a bunch of their players have been here. And what does that mean? I think there's just a familiarity on their end that will be there. I don't think it's any crazy advantage one way or the other, but it's a little bit different than someone coming here fresh and not having had been in our environment. So I think it's far removed. I think we're quite a bit different than we were that Saturday. You mentioned that was Tommy's first start offensively. We were pretty limited that day. I think defensively, there's some things that are different. I know, their quarterback at the time didn't play that day, so they were even different offensively than they had been that season. And I think their offense has taken on its own form this year. So some things, but ultimately it's probably far enough in the past. It's not that big a deal.
Justice listed back on the depth chart for the first time this season. Julius not listed, just an injury update.
Yeah, Justice really was probably by the time we played against Montana was in that mode to be the backup. Went out there and played the last couple plays. It was good to get him in there at the very least for that. So his progress, I think, is, again, put him in a position where he'd be a viable guy out there. And I think as the days go on, his practices go on, I think what that means is a little bit more each day. So, and then Julius, let's call it not out from a surgical perspective by any means. Given the timing of where we're at in the season, he's out for this week. This is the only game we have guaranteed. I'll say that much. And it's he's working hard, and it's our hope that we can get him back out there at some point.
You mentioned just the Martin offense dictating form since that 21 game. Just anything that they do particularly well, whether it was against New Hampshire or against the season?
Well, I think they can run it and they can throw it. And that's evidence just looking at their numbers. But I think their passing game, in particular, the downfield piece to it, the big play opportunities, I think is something that jumps out. And I think the thing on Saturday was they were able to be really physical with New Hampshire, and they were able to stay on the field and really dictate the tempo of the game. The plays in the first half were so lopsided. So it was a real dominant performance, and it was both sides of the ball. I mean, their offense stayed on the field, their defense got off the field. But now the physicality that they showed, and then anytime you can match a physical run game with a play action game, there's something there. And then their ability to get on the perimeter was part of it too. The number of just even quarterback power reads they ran in that game, and he kept some, he gave some, was something that I think stood out. So they did it in a lot of different ways on Saturday, and I think that's reflective of what they're capable of. Not necessarily every game has been quite as productive for them, but you look how they found a way to win that last game, to put themselves in a position against Lindenwood, to build off of that and have that kind of performance. They seem like they're hitting their stride.
Your guys' kicking game, I guess Miles, when he was a walk-on to now, I guess, how have you kind of seen him grow?
Yeah, I'd say significantly. Miles was a high school soccer player and basketball player who happened to kick a little bit. He chose to come to Montana State to come here to go to school. And, we opened the door for an opportunity to walk on his first spring. And you could see there was potential there. What I know Miles being his uncle is that, he's a really competitive guy, and he's athletic, and he his moments in high school, weren't on the football field. They were on the basketball court. They were on the soccer pitch. Is that what it would be called? And the kicking piece was just starting to happen for him. And I think each semester he got a little bit better to the point, really this fall for the first time, he was really hurt most of the last spring. So maybe it would have happened a little bit sooner, but he was able to find a different level of consistency that he hadn't. And that's really what that position's about. It's about being able to go out there and be repeatable time after time. And, thinking about the volume of kicks he's kicked in games, it really doesn't even matter the distance to me so much as he's probably only mishit a couple balls all year. And that's something that, looking at last year, misses are one thing, but mishit balls, that's a more concerning thing. So for him to get to that point where, okay, he'd shown a level of consistency that ultimately, coupled with an injury that Casey got in fall camp, we go out there and kick with Miles at New Mexico, really not knowing exactly where it would go. But he goes out there and was 5 for 5, I think, that day. And it's by and large, it's built upon that. And I know his confidence is growing, and certainly ours has in him. So, he's filled a void from a consistency perspective that we didn't have last year. And, we'll continue to need as these games get bigger and bigger. So, very pleased with what he's been able to do. And, I don't know if I would have saw this coming when he chose to come to Montana State a few years back.
I guess the consistency point, him being able to go out there and hit 49 how does that affect maybe some of your fourth down decision making and just relying on him?
Yeah, I think, lining up for that one, lining up for, I think, in the deep one against Idaho early in that game, early in the Idaho State game, before the half against Davis, in that 40 to 50 range, as long as the conditions have yielded it, really the second half of the season, I felt pretty good about that. And it doesn't mean they're all going to go in, but that was a big kick before the half to hit that 49 yards, his longest to this point. But it was maybe just as much what he did at Davis, even though he came up a few inches short, that allowed us to continue to move forward with that type of opportunity. So, I think in that part of the field, we've chosen to be more aggressive, period. And that is a little bit independent of our kicking situation. Just, I think our offense has the ability to convert, in those scenarios, create the 4-down kind of territory on a football field. And I think that's been as big a part of it as anything, just going into this year saying we're going to be more aggressive in that part of the field from the 35 to let's call it the 45. And, the fact that we, our last 2 times out have gotten position before the half with all we had left to give it a shot. And we made one and we came up a couple inches short. That's a lot different place than we were at this point last year, for sure.
The sole touchdown UT Martin gave up on Saturday was off a kickoff return. Just curious, how you think that's going to play into this Saturday and that part of special teams?
Yeah, I think the games get bigger. Special teams, those big plays are so pivotal, and we got to be on the right side of them. So, I guess the fact that they gave up a return, I suppose, is an opportunity for us to make a difference there. Our return game has been heavily tilted towards the punt side of things. We haven't maybe cracked it on the kick side. I know the one Ontario got, the last one that we got against Montana, that was a glimpse of maybe what he can do. So so much about the kick return side of things is opportunity. We haven't had a ton of opportunity. So if we get an opportunity on Saturday, we hopefully make the most of it. Certainly you flip that around, our ability to continue to cover like we have, to really go 12 games and not have a significant return against us in any way, shape, or form, it's a pretty good place to be. But that's in the rear view now. We got to figure out how to continue to do that and find ways to really limit the return side of things. So absolutely, to your point, I think special teams can and will play a factor this Saturday, and we need to be on the right side of that.
Yeah, you mentioned UT Martin's, run defense and under 100 yards per game. Does it give you confidence, though, that you played a couple other teams with a statistic like that and then you're able to run so well against them? Think back to Idaho.
Yeah, I think, what does that mean over 13 games for them now? I think you certainly have to dissect what that looks like. What have been some of those scores? What have been the opponent's willingness to stay with the run game? What has the opponent's mindset been going into a game? And also understand one way or another we have to establish ourselves on the run side of things. So, yes, I think teams like Idaho, teams like UC Davis, Montana that have had strong run games, and we found a way to run the ball in those games. Maybe, like Davis, we didn't run it like crazy, but we ran it enough. That has to be a piece of it. And if they're doing things, if it's a pure numbers situation that's taking the run game away, we have to find ways to make plays in the passing game. I think as we head into the playoffs here, and this is what we have as UT Martin, we are going to have to make plays in the passing game. It can't be all about us, solely counting on the run game. The weather looks fine on Saturday, so there might be a scenario that's unlike Saturday at some point down the road if we're fortunate enough. But Saturday looks good, so we got to take advantage of it in every which way. And but they have been able to stop it pretty consistently, maybe with the exception of K-State, and we're gonna have to figure out how to at least gain some yards on that side of it.
I'm working on a story about Marcus, and I was going back to 21 and that kind of pivot point for him. What do you remember most about him, kind of that season, and then right after the season when you sat down with him and asked him to switch or asked if you wanted to switch to offensive line?
Yeah, well, what I remember of Marcus first, he had shoulder surgery the winter right before I got the job. I don't know the timing; maybe it was in the fall, but he was still recovering from that. So that first spring, here's a young guy that was in his fourth semester, second spring, but really didn't have an opportunity to make his mark. We switched the defense, so there was a place for him on the interior side of things to that he fit based on his size and skill set. But I think as we went through that first fall, he was still on the outside looking in, but I think there was enough to look at it, just his frame in general, to say, boy, if we could put some more weight on him with his strength levels where they were, we might really have something on the offensive side of things. And typically those conversations are more challenging than his was. It was right away when we got back for that second semester of January in 2022, brought him in and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. And I think he'd played both sides at Billings Central. I think his favorite player is David Bakhtiari. Bakhtiari, however you say his last name, who has a favorite player that's an offensive lineman, Marcus Wehr did. So I think he gravitated towards the switch immediately, and maybe because he saw it in himself, maybe because he saw it as an opportunity to get on the field faster. Maybe it was just, hey, this is what the coach asked me to do. A combination of all those things. So he took to it right away with the weight gain. I know a lot was made of that really January through probably July of that year. And, by the time we got to the fall, it was pretty clear that not that we'd made the right move, but we had really had a fantastic player as a sophomore. And he's mean and ornery, so that plays on both sides of the ball. But, I think his understanding of angles and pad level, and just he's really he's as smart of offensive lineman that I've been around, as far as just getting it, getting the scheme, getting where he fits into it. And he's obviously played a couple different spots for us. So we made the right move, but and so much of it was that he just immediately went forward with it. He didn't fight it at all, and we're real thankful for that.
He obviously was good right away that season, but to see where he is now, anything that's really stood out about where he's grown just in the 3 seasons as an offensive lineman?
Well, I think, it was interesting last year. He played guard in the playoff game against NDSU. And, here's an example of his growth just in maturity. And, he came, when we met in January, and an opportunity to meet with all the players, and he said, "I'll play wherever, but if I'm going to play guard, I need to practice guard. I need to understand just the differences between, lining up that spot versus tackle, the different things I've been asked to do." And lo and behold, he's played just guard for us this year, the way it's worked out. So I think his continued growth and embracing that position, embracing all that goes into it, has set himself up where, I would argue he's the best offensive lineman in our league and likely in the country. And what does that mean for him beyond Montana State? There's definitely going to be opportunity for him to continue to play. So, I can't say enough good things about all the things that he's done, and certainly a bunch of it's in the weight room, but a bunch of it's just continuing to grow as a complete offensive lineman and what all that means. That he's gone, I think, to lengths that a lot of guys that I've been around haven't.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective has partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Coulter, do you have anything?
Yeah, hey, Coach, can you hear me okay?
Gotcha, yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to ask you this about how you build up the cumulative mindset of the team. I know that's something we've talked about all year, but now that it is sort of a one-and-done scenario, how much do you feel that within them, and how much confidence do you see within them?
Yeah, I think because of how we've went about our business each week, I think we can continue to live that way and understand that the biggest difference now is going 1-0 is the only catalyst to continuing this thing on. And what do we have to do to live in that mode? Yes, being the top seed was something that we desired to be, but it doesn't guarantee us anything. Someone filling out the bracket and doing whatever they think doesn't mean anything. We have to go out and play as hard as we can, be as sharp as we can against a really good Tennessee Martin team on Saturday, and that's all that matters. So I think the maturity that comes out of our senior group, I think is critical. I do think, the experience of last year and how abrupt that was, and I'm certain the thoughts that this senior group in particular had, after that game, and we're not going to let that happen to us again, meaning, let that thing slip, from our grasp. I think we all felt this time last year. So, we've lived in this world all year, and I don't think there's any reason we can't continue to do it, but we need to go out and prove that.
The fact that Tennessee Martin had probably the most resounding win of the first round, I think the most decisive, does that help to get their attention, or what do you think of just the way that they won on Saturday?
I know, it was impressive. I think, any team that makes it to the final 16 would have our attention. But there's a team that won on the road, beat a seeded team, and I mean, however, let's say 15-24, that thing played out. It played out. That's the way it was set up, and I think as we watched film last week, I think we felt like Tennessee Martin would go win that game. Now, the resounding fashion that they did on the road. I think it definitely has our eyes open, and the fact that they did it, certainly on both sides of the ball. It wasn't a matter of them having to outlast something and outscore a team or keep a team down. They clearly dominated that game really from the onset, with the exception of that kick return. So they definitely have our attention.
That league has made a lot of progress. I mean, 3 teams from that league in the playoffs this year. I know SEMO was good. I know they lost on Saturday, but they were good. Tennessee State good. So what do you think of just sort of the progress that league has made and sort of where they've been in the FCS?
Yeah, it's become a more competitive league. So my takeaway is that more teams have made an investment, maybe got the right coach in there. It's how leagues go from year to year is reflective of an investment made. It's certainly, I go back 10 years ago where the CAA with the Southland, with whatever the conference, the Southern Conference, I think that was Georgia Southern and App State. I mean, obviously, those 3 conferences that were stronger conferences have had a lot of teams leave. So that there's been opportunity for a league like the OVC, Big South combination to rise up and fill that void. I know our conference has continued, I think, to improve its level of play. The Missouri Valley's continued to be strong, but I think just the general landscape. I mean, the OVC is obviously taking that opportunity that was maybe presented with, some of those other leagues not being as strong as they were, 10 years ago, if not even 5.
And the Tennessee Martin quarterback, you mentioned him, but it seemed to me he can move the pocket, but he can also reset the pocket. Some of those deep throws, he kind of slid the pocket over, then he would reset and then throw it out the field. So how challenging is that element for your defense?
Yeah, I think to make that hard for him to be able to, there's designed dash plays to get him out, half rolls to have him set up and throw back. Anything we can to disrupt those opportunities on those called out-of-pocket plays is one thing, but it's, keeping him corralled and in the pure drop back, because he does have a big arm. So, and the longer those plays are extended, the harder it is to cover downfield. And certainly he's got good receivers on the other end and tight ends that can find ways to get open. So, making him uncomfortable, that's been our, beyond stopping the run, that's our primary objective each week. So whatever we can do, and he's a big, strong guy, and he can run a little bit too. So, he is definitely, as far as how do you stop Tennessee Martin, you better make it hard for him. I think that's clear the more film you watch, because he's capable of doing quite a bit, and they've got guys on the other side of it, receivers in particular, that are really capable as well.
Offensively, do they remind you of anybody in the Big Sky Conference?
Oh, not necessarily. I think their balance, I think there's a bunch of teams in our league that are attempting to achieve their balance, have a good back, have a couple good receivers. I think he's a little bit different quarterback. So that's where I would differentiate them. I think the attempt at balance and the types of runs, certainly match up with several of the teams we've played in our league. But his skill set, I think, that would be the challenging. I don't think I would exactly compare him to one quarterback in our league, and that doesn't mean he's better or whatever, but I just don't think he exactly compares. But you got to defend it all. I think that's the thing. You got to defend the width of the field with the speed in their run game, their read game, and then when they have a running back like they do and the receivers that they do, I think they can certainly stretch it vertically as well. Yeah, I think it really helps. And you look at the back half of our conference schedule, in particular between Eastern Washington, UC Davis, and Montana. I think what Martin presents is kind of this combination of maybe all 3 of those. And I think all 3 of those at times, gave our run game some challenges. There's no question about it. I think the size component of what they bring to the table is most represented by more that combination between Eastern and UC Davis. So our guys, their ability to know each and every week, priority one for that other team's defense is to limit our run game. And we might see some things that we haven't seen on film. Now that we have 12 games under our belt, we probably still haven't seen quite everything, but we've seen quite a bit, and we've seen a variety of different defensive linemen in particular, in the movements that they can create. So I think our guys, yes, their experience in dealing with that, I think their collective intelligence, I think their ability to communicate with one another, and then I think our offensive coaches, Coach Johnson, Coach Walker in particular, being able to, formulate the best way to attack any one of these fronts, and then have some answers as the game goes along is a critical opponent or component to us having success.
Last one for me. You've been a part of staffs that been on teams that have gone to national championship runs. So how do you sort of channel that this week, and how much does this team sort of remind you of some of the teams that have had similar sort of lofty aspirations?
Well, I think you have to have a team that can play December football, meaning, you throw the conditions out the window now. Again, we're going to have good conditions on Saturday, but you can run it, and hopefully you can stop it. I think that's definitely where championship football starts. You have a team that believes in one another and really truly wants to play for one another. I think we have that, and the teams that I've been around have had that as well. And then you got to have a bunch of guys that the moment isn't too big for, and fortunately for us, a good chunk of our guys have been in some moments, whether it's been this year or some of them going all the way back to 21. So there's something to experience. There's something to knowing that, next play is the most important play, and I think these guys embody that. And it'll have to play out, though. Just because I'm standing up here saying I think we have some of the elements doesn't mean we're guaranteed anything. But I definitely think we do, relative to our ability to be physical first and foremost, and then just our guys' belief in one another and their willingness to play for one another.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town